Hi everyone, I'm Abby. Welcome back to my channel. Today's gonna be like a little short, quick video. I recently, in the past few weeks, redid my sewing room, just kind of organizing different rooms in my house and try to make them better for myself. So I redid my sewing room a lot. I really like how it's kind of turned out. If you want to see how I kind of set it up in my old videos, it's there to kind of see, and there were issues with it that I just had to work with, and so I finally moved things to like make it work better. So yeah, I'm just gonna go over kind of like what I did and where I put things now and how it like helped improve, hopefully. I'm still kind of working things out in this new setup, but so far it's been really helpful and a lot better, kind of like workflow wise. And there's a lot less cords that I'm worried about tripping over, just so I move things to find outlets that are closer. So if you didn't know, my dining room is actually where I sew, and I use the dining table as my sewing table and everything. So that's kind of where we are. So we're gonna just start in like the front room or the like entryway and show the dining room and just kind of like where I moved things. So yeah, I'll show you real quick. So like if you look at my old videos, I used to have like a storage unit here. The mirror's still here, but I had a like cube unit here that you see all that left is my dog's food and bowl. And that used to share the unit with all my sewing stuff. But I actually moved that unit into here, you can see, and then I have all of my sewing things. I have a project that I'm working on kind of laid out on top of it, but this is half of the unit. The other half is over here, and I still have everything sorted, but this space is a lot more open, you can see. But in this corner, like I did the unit, and these just have like my patterns and such. I used to just stick these in a cubby, but I put them in a basket now. And this is just like extra thread and sewing supplies. And down here, like I call it my long-term project. These are projects I've had for a very long time, or I know they're gonna take me a long time. I also have some like projects like clothes that I made, but they're kind of falling apart, so I don't really want to like throw them away or anything, so I just kind of stuck them in here. But yeah, these are like projects that will either take me a long time, or I've had a long time and will continue to have for a long time. Maybe eventually they'll be done, but they're just in the long-term box that is here. And then this is all my like scrap fabric. So yeah, this is just fabric that I picked up that are scrap pieces or like from old projects that I've collected. So like, yeah, long-term scraps, extra sewing supplies, patterns. Then on top, I just put my Cricut. This used to just like sit right next to my cubes, but I cleared off the top, and so now I can set it up here. And you can see I laid my current project on top of it. This is my dahlia blooms that I'm doing the sew along on Instagram with. We're about halfway through it, so this is just the rest of the pieces for the rest of the project. And then down here, well, on the wall, I like hung up my Cricut mat, or mats. I have a few on there, but I just stuck them up there to get them out of the way. And then down here is kind of like all my other extra things. I have like my vinyl for my Cricut, and then I have like my interfacings and my yarn for when I eventually try to learn how to knit. I have patterns and stuff. And then I have a random toy of my dogs that I have to fix. But yeah, this is just kind of a random box of like other crafts besides sewing. So I have like my knitting stuff, my Cricut stuff, and then I just happen to have the interfacing because it doesn't fit in the cubes. So yeah, I just keep that to the side because it doesn't look too bad. But in the other cube I put over in this corner, and this corner is a little messier than I would like right now, but I have a lot of projects that I sort of need to work on. I just recently got a lot of my quilts back from my mom, who's my quilter, that I need to bind. So they're just kind of laying up here, so those aren't usually on there. And then as I had on my Cricut, the rest of the quilt of the sew along that we are doing are right here. So this is just kind of a temporary storage. It was just to get it off the table so I have room to work on stuff. But basically I have all my like future quilt projects Up here, I have my Harry Potter quilt that I'm currently working on also, along with the sew along, and then I have, that's the backing fabric for the sew along, and then these are two other quilt projects that I haven't started, but they're like kits, so I keep them in the boxes in here. So this is like the next up quilt project box, and then down there I have just all my spare fabric or like extra fabric that are not scraps. So these are like whole cuts of fabric that I have. So yeah, this, I didn't want to put these with the scraps because these are like, these haven't been cut into, and so they're whole pieces of fabric. And then I have like this box that usually sits up here, and this just has like random sewing things. I don't really get into this box. They're just like random things that I don't really want to throw away. They're not really things I'm going to use a lot, so I just keep them in this box. It's just like random scraps of fabric that I've gotten from like going to quilt and sewing events that they like hand out, you know. And then on this chair, I got rid of a lot of chairs that was in this dining room. They're just in a different room, but I've limited myself to 3 chairs. And this is like my spare chair where I set all of my projects that I have lined up. You can see I have more of the quilt along quilt here. These are like all the spare pieces, but I have like projects that I've started and need to finish, and then all here are like projects that I've either started or like I have like, this is the fabric and I have the pattern right on top of it. I think I've cut out the fabric or the pattern for this one, but these are all like fabrics that are signed patterns and stuff that I just haven't started working on. Who knows when I'll finish these, but this is like all the garments. Yeah, so like I had my quilt, and then these are all my garments. I obviously need to really work on narrowing this down, but I've just been working on a lot of quilts lately instead of my garments. But slowly and surely I'll get there. And then I don't know if you remember, but I had the table in the middle still, but I completely moved it to the wall. And so now I have all this space, like coming into the entry, I have all this space I can lay down my quilts. I used to have just that like small area, and I used to have to go into the living room to lay down like my quilts when I was making the tops. Like, so now I moved the table, so now I have all this room. It's gonna be super nice when I have to lay out a whole quilt top to like sew it together. So that was one of the big changes I wanted to make, was have more room to lay things out. So yeah, you can see like here's where the table leg used to be. So it's definitely moved like a good 2 or 3 feet over. But one thing I changed the positions of everything on my table. So I used to have my sewing machine right here and my serger right here. And I decided to move them over there because there is an outlet over there. So now I have my serger on the far end because I don't use it a ton. So I stuck it over there. It's not plugged in, but I stuck my sewing machine here, and the cord is actually on this side, and it used to have to like, when it was here, the cord had to go over here to like the outlet that's over here. And I used to worry about tripping over it all the time, coming like to and from the wall to the table. So now I don't have to worry about it being in the way or anything. It's now plugged in over there. So the cord's out of the way. And I had my ironing over here, but I flipped it to the other side. And this one, I thought I was gonna worry about the cording, but the cord's actually long enough, and I plug it in over there, and it's long enough, I don't worry about the tripping, or like the table is close enough that I don't have to worry about tripping over the cord like I did with my sewing machine. That was the one area I was kind of worried about, but I didn't want to plug it into this wall because I ironed from this side, and so I didn't want the cord going from the wall over here. So it works fine plugging into there. I don't leave it plugged in like most people do their irons. But yeah, I moved my ironing over there. I have like my spare things, like the starch and like pins and all just random stuff over there. And then I still keep in the middle my like magnetic pins, my cup of scissors, and like my boxes of pins. All right, and then the last thing I moved was my cutting. I used to have it over on this side of the table. Yeah, I used to have it on that side of the table. But I had problems with with when I cut fabric not having like enough. I didn't want to leave it over there. Didn't want the fabric to like run into the wall. I used to have chairs on the wall with like stuff on them, but I moved it over here. So now I have plenty of room to cut But yeah, and then I kept one chair to like sit on when I sew, and then I have a chair over here. This is just like an extra chair that I set things on, like all my cutting of the current project. And this is part of my Harry Potter quilt. But yeah, I want to just try to keep down the space I take up, so I got rid of a lot of chairs, and plus it makes this room a lot more empty and more easy to like move around and keep things organized. So yeah, it's working out really well so far. I haven't really had to iron really big pieces of fabric, so we'll see how that goes in that space over there next to the wall. But so far I've liked having this setup, especially not having to worry about tripping over cords, and I have plenty of room to sew. And also when I had my machine on here, like if I sewed like at the end of sewing the tops for my quilts, they would like fall off the edge of the table because the machine was so close to being to the edge. It was really hard to sew the really big pieces, so hopefully having all this room to set it on will be nice, and I won't have to like struggle with keeping my quilt up on the table. Really liked having it changed, and I think I will keep it this way for a while, especially having all this space now is so nice. And this is like cleaner and everything's just more open. So yeah, all I have to do really is work on like getting all the fabric and projects done to kind of clear that space out too. I think eventually if I work enough to like clear out that box and these projects to get done, as long as I don't buy too many more, I can like put the projects into the cube and like maybe get rid of this chair even and just have one extra chair to put things on. So eventually I might have even a tiny bit more space. But yeah, this looks a little worse than it, just because I have this current quilt along, and then all these I just got back from my mom, so I have to work on these. This is kind of like the overview, the redo of my sewing space, and it's super nice to have clean and a little organized and so much room for everything when I'm working. But yeah, that's the little redo I did of my sewing room. I might make a few more like minor changes, but again, really liking how it's laid out now. I don't worry about moving around as much. There's so much space and cords aren't in the way, so that's just nice. Just kind of like the workflow works a lot better in this new setup. That was just a little update, and I will see you guys in the next video sewing in this new setup. I'll see you guys then. Bye.